Good morning. The Harris County AFLCIO Council is a proud member of Houston's unity effort on comprehensive immigration reform. And I'm disappointed today that behind me upstairs on the 17th floor we have a subcommittee of the House that's going to be discussing a very narrow aspect of immigration reform. A very narrow aspect that truly does not reflect what's going on here in Houston, Texas. Labor, of course, stands for comprehensive immigration reform. Labor also stands against criminals and terrorists coming across our border. That goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. What we ought to be discussing if we're going to have a congressional hearing in the city is we ought to be discussing comprehensive immigration reform.
Comprehensive
we ought to be
enforcement.
discussing safety and health standards. We ought to be talking about health care for everybody in this country. We ought to be talking about raising the minimum wage. We ought to be talking about the abuses that workers suffer, especially the abuses that immigrant workers suffer at the hands of unscrupulous employers.
Send them home.
If you look around this city and you look around at our home building industry, it's immigrant labor. And that labor is not covered by workers' compensation. That labor is not covered with safety standards. That labor is not covered with decent wages and health benefits. That's what we ought to be talking about if we have members of Congress in this city today. Again, we must have comprehensive immigration reform that takes into account